What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for DraftKings and FanDuel. This time for the Monday Night Football Week 3 single game showdown slate between the Baltimore Ravens and the Detroit Lions. In this video, we will discuss the injuries that impact tonight's slate. We will look at the core plays and strategies for low risk contests in DFS. And we will discuss the angles, picks, and strategies to help you win the biggest prizes that FanDuel and DraftKings have to offer. Welcome, I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. And we have a great matchup on tap for tonight's Monday Night Football Showdown slate. So let's get into it, and we'll look at the injuries that impact the slate. Shout out to those of you in the comments from Thursday's video who recognize the importance of injuries. I mentioned it briefly that some people don't like the injury section, but it's extremely important. Just look at yesterday. In Discord, I've been posting the injury upgrades and downgrades for the Sunday main slate. And if you just look at the guys who got injury bumps yesterday, Hunter Henry, Cortland Sutton, Chris Olave, Las Vegas receivers just happened to be Trey Tucker and not Jacoby Myers, Jake Ferguson, A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, Ricky Pearsall, GPP winners on this list. So injuries and adjusting for defensive injuries is extremely important. And we actually have a couple tonight. So if we look at the visiting Detroit Lions, the most impactful injury on offense is their offensive tackle Taylor Decker is officially questionable. I think he's going to play. I haven't seen anything indicating otherwise. A little banged up, but expect him to play. Just monitor elevations at 4 p.m. Eastern from the practice squad, and then monitor pregame inactives at 6:45, 6:50, just to make sure Taylor Decker is suited up. If he's out, that would certainly downgrade the Detroit offense. Their edge, one of their starting pass rushers, Marcus Davenport, is out, so a slight bump to the Baltimore passing game as a result. On the Baltimore side, Isaiah Likely is still out. There was some hope there was some hope he would make it back for the first game of the season. That hasn't been the case. They've been taking his recovery slowly. Sounds like he'll be back next week at this point, dealing with that foot, that broken foot he sustained in the preseason. But he's out. If you look at their routes in the two games that both Isaiah Likely and Patrick Ricard, their fullback, have missed, this is what it's looked like. So it's been Mark Andrews, 76% of the routes for Lamar Jackson's dropbacks has been run by Mark Andrews. 44%, which is still a pretty high number for Charlie Kolar, their number 2 tight end. And then Zaire Mitchell-Payton, who we played in preseason seemingly all the time over the past couple of years. He's been playing this fullback role, basically, been playing the Patrick Ricard role. He's only run a route on 7% of Lamar's dropbacks over the first 2 weeks of the season. So just keep that in mind as you're building tonight for which tight ends are going to be on the field for Baltimore and for how many snaps. Now, the most impactful injuries probably for the entire game that we know are 2 of the front 7 of Baltimore's defense are going to be missing tonight in Nnamdi Madubuike and Kyle Van Noy. So Madubuike is their defensive tackle. Van Noy is a pass rusher and an edge rusher. So that's pretty big. That should be a pretty big upgrade for Detroit's offense in general. If you're missing a defensive tackle, that's great for the running backs. If you're missing an edge, that's great for the passing game. Bump everyone up on Detroit's offense for tonight. Now, our model does not take these into account because it's really hard to historically find accurate injury information to model. However, if you're using our lineup builder or our model or your own projections, whatever it may be, just manually bump up some of the Detroit players knowing that Baltimore is dealing with some of these injuries on the defensive side. All right, let's move on and let's talk about low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads, where you just have to beat half the field to double your money on DraftKings or FanDuel. And it's extremely hard on a slate like this because, as you know, we try to lock up all the scoring play, both quarterbacks, both running backs. We have a bit of a split backfield in Detroit with Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, so that alone makes it tough. David Montgomery has the 3 sole goal line opportunities for this team through 2 weeks. And I was talking with Chris this morning, our NFL manager, and it's been 2 really weird game scripts to start the year for Detroit. So it's really hard to make out what they want their ideal split to be between Gibbs and Montgomery. So it makes it tough for low-risk contests. Either way, we're putting Jackson at the captain or MVP on FanDuel because he's going to be the most popular option there, the highest floor, highest ceiling option. We could play Derrick Henry. We could play Jahmyr Gibbs. We could play Jared Goff. That leaves just $10.50 left per player. That's really not that much for tonight. And also the issue is when we're playing these guys like this, we're leaving out 2 of the highest ceiling options on the slate in St. Brown and Flowers. Flowers especially will be popular. We're leaving out the popular mid-range options. So it's really tough. I think if you wanted to do it, you'd probably leave out Derrick Henry. But then you would turn the TV off once he busts that first 60-yard run. So it's really tough. It is a little easier on FanDuel, especially with the half-point PPR scoring and the way the salary is set up for tonight's game. So you play Lamar to MVP. You can still play Derrick Henry. You play Gibbs. You play Goff. Let's put Lamar at MVP, actually. Lamar at MVP. That leaves $2,400 left per player. And if we scroll down, we'll talk about the values in depth in the high-risk section. But you could play, let's say, Kolar at $1,400 and then you could play Justice Hill. That's an option. Any of these guys in the middle here. So you could go double punt with these guys, but again, you're still leaving out Flowers, you're leaving out St. Brown, you're leaving out the middle values. So it is really tough. I would probably avoid low risk contests tonight, unless historically you've done well in these types of slates and you know that you can build a better lineup than your opponent. Really, tonight is more of a high risk night, and we do have a good amount of high risk angles to take. So let's move on to that section. We'll talk about how we can win some of the big prizes that DraftKings and FanDuel have to offer for tonight. But first, water sip break, which is sponsored by. No, just kidding. We don't have a sponsor yet. Maybe soon. We're still working hard behind the scenes on the water break sponsor. Don't worry, we'll get one soon. But now we're hydrated. Let's get on to the high-risk contest. So leagues, GPPs, satellites, where you have to beat a lot of people to win a lot of money. Generally, in this section of this video, every week or every Thursday, every Monday, we have a good amount of angles that we want to take, high-level angles that we take, and then we can dive in and look at the lower ownership plays. Tonight, it may seem a little counterintuitive if you haven't played a lot of Showdown or you're just looking at two really good teams. Yes, Baltimore is a 5.5 point favorite tonight, so you would expect the field to build naturally more towards Baltimore heavy lineups, but maybe not as much as you would think it's going to happen tonight, because we actually see the field building a lot of 4-2 lineups in Baltimore's favor, so 4 Ravens players and 2 Lions, a lot of Ravens 5-1 stacks, and then a ton of Ravens 3-3 stacks where a Ravens player is the captain. And with a shorter spread, 5.5 points, you may think, why is that the case when there's two good teams? Well, one, all the value, quote-unquote value, is on Baltimore's side in this game. And Detroit is so top-heavy in their usage, they really flow through Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Laporta, and those guys are all above 5,400. They really don't have many scraps left to give for other guys beyond that. So it's really tough to get any Detroit values on any Showdown slate that they play, let alone tonight, which is why we'll see even heavier Baltimore heavy lineups tonight, just because of the team that they are playing. So that is something that it may not be intuitive as you're building, but you'll definitely have to factor that into your builds, knowing that if you're thinking you're building a unique 4-2 or 5-1 Raven stack, know that the field is right along with you tonight. So what can we do to get different? We could play more top-heavy Detroit lineups, play 4-2. 5-1's probably a little crazy. But even 3-3 with a Detroit captain is fine too. Or if you skew Baltimore heavy, you have to factor in some of those lower ownership players, which don't worry, we'll get to here in a second to talk about. But first, I do want to talk about, you know what, before I talk about the receivers, let's talk about these Baltimore value plays. So it's Mark Andrews. We have projected for 38% on DraftKings in the flex, 25% on FanDuel, $4,400. The lowest Mark Andrews probably has ever been. Let's see here. Yeah, he was $7K in that season opening Showdown slate. He's been nothing short of terrible. And I'm not sure you could be any more cooked than Mark Andrews is. Just does not look great. Yes, he's on the field running a ton of routes, but drawing targets is a skill. And at this stage of his career, he is not drawing targets. Now that he's super popular and a value, he'll probably score a touchdown tonight, now that I've said all this. But it seems to me like it's bad chalk. If he's going to be out there running that many routes but only drawing a couple targets a game, you know, he gets 3, 4, 5 targets. Yes, his median projection is going to look good, but a lot of that is based off last year. At least some of it is based off last year. Just not a great look for Mark Andrews. I would much rather fade Andrews at 35% or 25% on FanDuel. Let's see. A little more expensive, 6K, but still going to be popular here. So again, if you're thinking Mark Andrews is old and washed as I am, he makes an easy fade for tonight. Other popular Baltimore values for tonight will be Rashad Bateman, who I much prefer. He's only 4K as the wide receiver too, which is kind of crazy. Yes, hasn't had the box score production yet, but we know he's out there running a ton of routes. Easily the number 2 wide receiver in this offense. He's going to have a big game soon, and his ownership is expecting that tonight as well, as we have him projected for nearly 40% on both sites. Justice Hill, again, super cheap. Going to get some running back 2 touches behind Derrick Henry. Mix in negative 0.1 points in week 1. But again, he catches passes normally. And if you can catch a couple passes, and especially if you're playing small field contests, a couple points at $2,800 can win you a contest. Now, you probably need him to score a touchdown or get more touches than expected in large field contests. So it certainly depends on the amount of people that you're playing against in DFS tonight on how you want to deploy Justice Hill. And finally, we have Tyler Loop. Shout out to Loop Troop, who we were talking about in Discord in week 1 in that matchup. Great kicker, replacing Justin Tucker. Again, just we have jokes in the Discord, and we're sweating the games, and if you want to join a community of like-minded people, make sure you check out the Discord. In addition to all the other stuff that we talk about, the injuries I've been talking about at the top of the show for the main slates, in addition to all the updates, Chris's live chats on Sunday mornings before the game start. Join our Discord. You can get access whether you're a member of OccupyFantasy.com. If you're a member here on YouTube, not a subscriber, a member, it's like $2.99 a month. Get you access to our Discord. Or if you have Amazon Prime, you can get Twitch Prime for free over at twitch.tv. That also gives you access to our Discord. So check it out if you haven't already. So Loop is going to be popular, the most popular of the kicker and defense options tonight, and rightfully so. He's been great to start the year. So all those other values on Baltimore's side. Now let's talk about the receivers, and we'll stick with Baltimore. Flowers and Bateman are locked in as the top two receivers. Flowers has been outstanding to start the year, but the rotation behind them has been, I would say, interesting at best and hard to decipher at worst. We look at last week. DeAndre Hopkins played just 10 snaps. Yes, it was a blowout game against Cleveland. Devontae Walker played 13 snaps. Tylan Wallace played 28 snaps. He got hit. First of all, Wallace and Walker got the start in that game. I guess whatever package they were using, they had them start the game, which is weird. But that's a lot of routes and a lot of snaps for two guys who are basically going to be unowned tonight. Tylan Wallace is kind of this weird range at 3K. No one's going to want to play him. Devontae Walker, 1,600. They're going to play some snaps tonight. Whether it's more like the 5 to 10 snaps they saw in week 1 against Buffalo, which is more likely, it's interesting. It's really tough to figure out what they're trying to do. Now, the offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, said they do want to get DeAndre Hopkins gradually more involved, expand his packages. Now, the key word there may be gradually. That may not necessarily mean this week. So there are options here. There are definitely options, extremely low-owned options. And even DeAndre Hopkins is going to be low-owned himself. We'll talk, again, once we get to all the low-owned plays here in a second, you'll see how all these guys fit into the equation. But I think it'll be a key piece tonight if we can figure out how Baltimore is going to use their receivers. And I will say, I will gladly hop on these shows every week and say, I don't know the answer to something. I don't know what Baltimore is going to do with these receivers. So we just figure out if we need low-owned plays and how much salary we need, and we can mix and match these guys into our lineups. Now, on Detroit's side, it's a little more predictable. So we have Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously, who is locked in, as is Jameson Williams. But if we look at the big splits in the wide receiver 3 role from week 1 to week 2, and again, 2 completely different game scripts, but the coaching comments back this up. In week 1, Khalif Raymond, who is $2,000 on DraftKings, he played 77% of the snaps. Sorry, he ran 77% of the routes on Jared Goff's dropbacks. Isaac Tesla, the rookie, who we played basically every week in preseason DFS, he only ran 7% of the routes in week 1. He caught that incredible one-handed touchdown. He's $1,200, by the way. Fast forward to week 2, last week, and Khalif Raymond plays just 43%, or runs a route on 43% of the dropbacks. Tesla, all the way up to 37%. So, basically even compared to week 1, and this is it aligns perfectly with head coach Dan Campbell said. He said, we need to get Tesla some more opportunities. So, when a coach says something and they follow it up, we can pretty much bank on that likely being the case moving forward. Either way, I don't necessarily think that Tesla is going to all of a sudden be like a 70, 75% route share guy right now. Maybe second half of the season, sure. But either way, we got 2 guys down here, 2K and 1,200 respectively, that are going to run 30 to 40% of the routes for Jared Goff. Interesting guys. And we can pretty much predict that they will be on the field, unlike the Baltimore situation. So who will be these low-owned plays? Mentioned it many times in this video. Let's run down these low-owned plays, and then we can close out the video. So if we start from the top down, and again, this applies mostly to both sites because of the pricing tonight and how these teams use their players. David Montgomery, 6,200. We have him under 20% projected ownership on both sites. Again, 2 weeks into the season, we're not exactly sure how they want to optimally split the workload between Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You look down the stretch last year, Gibbs dominated touches. Hasn't necessarily been the case this year so far, but again, it's been 2 really weird game scripts. Either way, Montgomery gets some red zone touches. If he splits work evenly, even if it's just on the ground, he has a chance to easily make the optimal lineup, and especially at sub 20% ownership, we'll take shots on that all the time. We saw Cam Scadaboo last night do something similar. So David Montgomery, certainly an option if you're looking for a higher priced, lower owned player. Mentioned the Loop Troop at 5K. Above him is Jake Bates. Underdog kickers who are more expensive will always be virtually unowned. So Jake Bates, despite having one of the biggest legs in the league at 5,200, we're going to have him under 15% projected ownership tonight. Wouldn't be shocked if it's closer to 10%. Excellent high-risk pivot away from Loop or anyone else in this range. Next, we have DeAndre Hopkins. And let's just mention all of the Baltimore receivers here. DeAndre Hopkins, $4,800. You look at his showdown price in week one, 4,200, so not that much different, but he was extremely low owned on that slate, caught the touchdown. And he's still going to be low owned tonight. We have 9 to 15% projected ownership, depending on the site that you're playing on. And then you go down to Tylan Wallace, 3K. We have him at virtually unowned, 0 to 1%. And then we have Devontae Walker, $1,600. Walker, by the way, crazy stat, has 3 career receptions. All 3 have gone for touchdowns, 2 of them for last week. So Walker is a talented guy, and we'll see if they want to get him more involved. Either way, the 3 secondary receiver options for Baltimore are all expected to be low owned for tonight's slate. Both defenses will be low owned, right? No one wants to play a defense in this matchup. Lions, Ravens, that sounds exciting. Who wants to play defenses? Both these teams will be pretty low owned. Now, Baltimore missing a couple guys on defense. Detroit is missing an edge rusher. Not the best time to play it, but as you saw yesterday, if you played the main slate yesterday, anything can happen for a defense to score a touchdown. Block kick, punt return, kick return, fumble recovery, interception return. If you're Isaiah Rodgers, both of those for the Vikings. So all it takes is one play for a defense to hit value. So I think we have to mix them into our lineups tonight in high risk. Lions are 3,600, Ravens 4,200. That's pretty cheap for both defenses. So I really like mixing in defenses. Not a great likely game script for it, but when teams pass a lot, things happen. So again, we have to consider that. We mentioned, who else we got here? Yeah, we mentioned the Detroit receivers. Khalif Raymond, we have super low owned, and he's going to run a route likely on 30 to 40%. And we know he's gotten some deep shots in the past before. Love him at 2K in more higher risk contests, especially larger field. Tesla, let's talk about this because we've had some questions in the past about these cheap guys who catch ownership. Right now, we have Tesla for like 15% projected ownership in large field. But if you play anything small, less than 500 players, especially less than 100 players, you play anything where a pro can play more than $5 on DraftKings, Tesla is going to be 20, 30% owned, if not higher tonight. That's just how these value plays work. Sharp players, they see them, they jam them in. So it's weird because you're going to see lower ownership on Tesla in large field GPPs, but your lineup is more likely to be duped there on even considering the how many players are in the field, even when you factor that in, because there are only so many types of builds you can build with Tesla. Right? Even if you think you're being pretty unique, if you're using most of the salary cap and you're playing Tesla, that lineup will be found by an optimizer or Sims, and it'll be heavily duplicated. Whereas in smaller contests, yes, he might be 20 or 30%, but you can leave a little bit of salary or play one low-owned player with them, and you'll be different. That's a big difference. So it seems counterintuitive that a guy will be higher owned and you're less likely to be duped, but that's how it works when there's a cheaper guy like Tesla. You're going to see this on almost every showdown slate. He's just the most recent example and something to think about when you're building, because we get this question live. I use Tesla. Can I do this, that? In large field, you're actually more likely because more types of lineups are going to use that type of player. Whereas in small field, all it takes is one pivot, and no one's going to do that because everyone jams in the best plays. All right, anyone else we want to talk about here? We've talked about the Baltimore receivers. Backup tight ends. Brock Wright has run just 13 routes in 2 games. Did catch a touchdown last week. Where's Brock Wright? Very big dog. There he is. 2,400. He's way too expensive for 2,400. Charlie Kolar, just 600. Hasn't really gotten the targets. Let's see here. Let's double check. Got 3 targets. No, he didn't. He got 0 targets in both games. But he's out there getting his cardio. He's run a route on, what did I say earlier? Yeah, 44% of Lamar's dropbacks. That's much better. I mean, he's got just a couple less targets than Andrews, who's $3,800 and runs way more routes. So you could pump with Kolar and hope he gets a catch or 2. Not the worst option in the world. You know what? I said that was going to be the end of the video, but we actually have one more thing to discuss. Let's talk about MVP and captain. Lamar, we expect to be 25% plus owned at captain on DraftKings, 35% plus on FanDuel at MVP, even higher, obviously, in smaller contests. And this is very similar to yesterday's slate. Shout out to Chuck, who did the Sunday night video, talked about the dilemma or the situation when you have a really popular captain or MVP and what you can do. And by the way, shout out to Chuck for doing a great video, great job on the Sunday night video. Shout out to Chris for doing a great job on the main slate videos. Make sure you guys show them some love, whether it's in these comments or when they post their videos. Definitely show them love in the comments because those guys work hard and do a great job to get those videos out for you. Try to get as many videos out to you per week as we can for free. And Chuck and Chris are a big part of that, so shout out to them. Anyways, in the video yesterday, Chuck was talking about with Mahomes being super popular, 40% or whatever at MVP captain. And if you're playing mass multi-entry, or honestly even small field, you basically have the option of going all in or all out. So you're playing 100% of that guy at MVP or captain or 0%. And Jack, who's the creator of our lineup builder here at Occupy Fantasy, has employed this strategy very successfully in the past in showdown contests. Routinely, even on slates where the captain MVP ownership is not as bumped up by one guy, Jack will go all in one captain MVP in 150 lineups, and he's had a lot of success doing that. It makes even more sense on a slate like this. The biggest question we have every time in this spot is, are there low-owned players that we like enough that we can leave salary and pair and get different with the popular captain MVP? And I think we do have that tonight with Lamar, because unlike previous years, we have some uncertainty, and he's actually thrown to some guys behind the top two guys. Andrews hasn't been great. We have Kolar at 600. We have Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker basically unowned. We have D-Hop, who is getting end zone targets, and he's a little overpriced based on how many targets he's getting, but can catch a touchdown or two. So that's an option. I would not fault anyone for going all in on Lamar tonight and just mixing and matching the low-owned plays, because we do have a good amount of decent ones tonight. If not, you can go with Jahmyr Gibbs or some portfolio of Jahmyr Gibbs, who we have projected, by the way, for like 8% captain on DraftKings. He's overpriced based on his usage so far, but if he gets anywhere close to his second half usage of last year, or just get some touchdown variance tonight, he could smash at 8% captain ownership. We got St. Brown and Henry, both guys who have 3 touchdown upside, as we've seen so far this year already in just 2 weeks. They're less than 15% owned. Zay Flowers is going to be 16%. He'll be the next most popular captain likely after Lamar Jackson. We got Jared Goff, 7% on DraftKings, not much higher on FanDuel. Jameson Williams, just 3%. We know he can catch bombs. And then even the mid-tier guys like Laporta and David Montgomery are going to be less than 5%. And we saw last night, it may seem weird, right? Like a slate full of studs. But we saw yesterday, Kareem Hunt was the optimal MVP and a solo winner on FanDuel. So in weirder game scripts or where studs do whatever they need to do, middle tier guys can be the optimal captain MVP. So, and if you're playing DraftKings, it was Cam Scadaboo, who was 6K or whatever. So really interesting slate tonight, but I think we have a lot of good angles to utilize and a lot of ways we could take down some tournaments. So after this, our writer Bismo will have the daily plug up at ActiveFantasy.com. He'll give his personal rankings, his lineup construction tips for various contests on DraftKings and FanDuel, his slate notes. And again, it's a different angle than our model, different angle than this video. So another way to look at the slate. So make sure you go read that. And some people are auditory learners, and that's why you listen to these videos. Some people are visual and they like to see, and some people like to read about it. Daily Plug is a great way to do that. Model's up and running already on the site, has projected ownership. Lineup Builder's already up and running. You can build up to 300 lineups using our ownership model values and our optimal lineup criteria. Go check it out. Memberships as low as $7 per week. I already talked about the Discord. You guys know what to do, how to support the channel. Like, drop the comments with the water emojis, and subscribe, because we got some more unique slates coming up. We got a 2-gamer already on Monday. And so just make sure you're subscribed. You'll get notified when we go live or upload any videos on this channel. It's free to do. Just click subscribe. So for Occupy Fantasy, I'm Brian. Thank you for listening. As always, good luck and enjoy tonight's Ravens and Detroit Showdown slate.